Welcome to Religious Community. From many paths and with many diverse needs. If you come here seeking comfort, may your pain be soothed. If you have come here looking for answers, may you find new questions. If you have come here seeking purpose, may your call be awakened. And if you have come here hoping to build a new way, may the path be open for you. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Fayetteville. My name is Reverend Renee Jansky and I'm your minister and music director, and lucky and grateful to be that. Unitarian Universalism is a tradition open to all people, whether you are religious or non-religious. We UUs have 7 core values at the heart of our beliefs: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, generosity, and love, which is the most important and at the center of everything that we UUs do. We respect our connection to each other, to all of life, and to the precious universe of which we are but a little part. We welcome you, whoever you are at this moment and wherever you are in your spiritual journey. For those of you joining us online, welcome. We are glad that you're here and we love our Facebook congregants. We are so happy to see you visitors. Welcome home. We would like to encourage you to hang out after the service for coffee and conversation. Members, I would ask that you greet our newcomers and make them feel welcome as we grow our circle wider. For those of you visiting us, you'll find a visitor information card in the seat back in front of you. We would love for you to fill one out so we can get you on the email list that Fawn lovingly curates and sends out once a week. We do not spam you, or we do not sell your email addresses. We send out an email once a week to keep you informed of our events. That's also the email list that you can get on in case we're closed for inclement weather or something crazy. If you are new, and if you are not new, please check out our website at uufayetteville.org for more information about us. Later in the service, we will have a time where you're invited to come forward and drop a stone symbolizing your joy, concern, or milestone into our bowl of water. If you have a joy or concern you'd like to share, we invite you to fill out one of the yellow cards you'll find on the seat back in front of you. There's a place there to indicate if you want your joy or concern shared aloud, or if you want it to be confidential and only shared with myself and leadership. If you fill out a yellow card, you can bring that forward during the joys, concerns, and milestones. Now, if you're online, you may write them in the comments section just before or at the time of joys and concerns. Please note that all Facebook comments will be public. If you have a need for hearing assistance, our AV Tech David can help you with that. And children are always welcome in our service. And there's a staff nursery downstairs if you prefer. Please remember to silence your cell phones as we enter into our time of service together. And I am so excited to welcome Brandon Weston, local folklorist and writer, author of 3 books, which are available at Pearl's Books and the Four of Wands and other places. I'm so excited to welcome you back today. We love having you here. Thank you. Now, would you like to come and light our chalice, Natalie, Magnus?
Please join us with lighting the chalice by saying the words on the screen. atmosphere of this community and service is its prayer.
To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and truth, and to help one another. Thus do we covenant together.
All right, good morning. Thank you for having me back. For many of us, tradition means connection. Connection to our communities, connection to our ancestors. But what tradition isn't is static, unchanging, unevolving. Tradition is what we bring forward with us from the past to better understand our present.
Please rise as you are willing and able as we sing our opening hymn, number 389, Gathered Here. In religious community, we share our joys and our triumphs, our sorrows and our broken places, and meaningful moments in our lives. Because love is what connects us, and love is made up of many different feelings and events. In this circle of care, we make space for the complexity of life, the myriad experiences that bless and break our hearts. The truth of human experience dictates that on any given day, we come to the table with hearts in different places. We love through interaction, and it's in our interactions that we come to know the world and our place in it. Our interactions and our gathering is very important. When we gather, and when love is at the center of that gathering, and when the outcome of our gathering is joy and laughter, it is a fierce form of resistance. Fear and hate cannot thrive where joy and love are the norms. Fear and hate will not be planted, and it will not grow. We Unitarian Universalists believe that it is in the gathering and in the brave task of sharing ourselves that creates and grows trust and connection in the world. And that this is how we come not only to marvel at, but to engage in the depth and movement of the spirit of life, of the human experience, of the interconnection of which we are but a little part. And so, dear ones, we must create the space. If you have filled out a yellow joys and concerns card, you may bring it up and give it to me and drop a stone in the bowl of water by Jean. And friends, if you don't want to turn in a joys or concerns card, you can just drop a stone in the water. You may come forward. Brenda, will you offer us some music? David, are there joys and concerns on Facebook this morning? Not today. Jean, let's drop some stones for the joys and concerns that we hold quietly in our heart. We can't share everything. Let's drop a few more for the joys and concerns that we might encounter until we are together again. Thank you, Jean. Today, in UU congregations all over the world and here at our precious UUFF home, we've dropped our stones and shared ourselves together in an effort to live into, as best we can, what we profess about placing love at the center of all we do. What a magnificent challenge. We are currently living in times baiting us not to love. The social and political atmosphere in which we travel insidiously tempts us to find fault, place blame, point fingers, and increase that which can tear us apart. And yet, we practice a faith, often imperfectly, because after all, we are human, but we continue to practice a faith where we are called to answer the question, what is the most loving thing that I can do right now? What an outstanding challenge. What an unbelievably vital attempt. What an incredibly needed beacon for the future of us all. So as we gather today to support each other in living this mission, as we drop these stones, may the light of our flaming chalice breathe life and love into our beloved congregation, into all of you who by the very nature of this calling have a great and wonderful opportunity to live into love in these days filled with so many struggles and so much possibility. May it be so. For our offering, we have a lot of work to do. And I'm afraid that there's going to be quite a bit more work to do before we get to rest. I want to thank you for your financial contribution to this fellowship. Each year, this fellowship gives a portion of our money to the larger governing body of the Unitarian Universalist congregations. But today, we are sharing the plate with a local organization. We will share the plate with Arkansas Citizens First Congress, a multi-issue and nonpartisan coalition of organizations who work together for progressive change in the state policy. Coalition members come from all corners of the state and work on many different issues. At the Arkansas legislature, the coalition members lobby together on a common agenda. They also watchdog the legislature and lobby against threats to progressive policy. UUFF is a supporting member of this crucial organization, and the cash you put into the collection plate today will be donated to them, as well as any specially designated cash or checks. Please put share plate on the cash envelope or check memo line. Ushers, we can now take up the offering. Brenda, will you offer us some music?
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Brandon Weston. I'm a local folklorist and writer specializing in traditions of healing in the Ozarks. So Ozark traditional healing. And so I visited you all a couple times now. It's starting to feel like a series, which is really good. I like doing that sort of thing. This talk was the hardest for me to sort of formulate because I could bring a lot of facts and I could bring a lot of figures and things like that about representation of traditional healing amongst modern healing practices today. And there's a lot of information about that out there. But it sort of felt like as I was developing this, I was trying to make a case for reviving something that is dead. And that's farthest from the truth. These traditions of healing aren't dead. They're still here. They're living, breathing traditions. And so, in my studies of the Ozarks, I've encountered a couple different sort of groups of misconceptions when we start talking about folk traditions in general, but especially when we look at traditions that are intimate, like healing and family traditions, that sort of thing. And it seems that the misconceptions are divided into the big academic category of folklorists. I consider myself a part of this group as well, but so I can be critical about it. This sort of academic leaning that we see in the folklorists of the first part of the 20th century who looked at Ozark traditions as being backward, as being superstition, as being, not having anything to contribute apart from just making people feel comfortable. And we still see a lot of those criticisms today, even in academia. On the other side, we have, unfortunately, the misconceptions that often come from within the culture itself that, folk healing within the Ozarks is, we call it the sort of capital T tradition, and you see this in even religious organizations a lot. These are the traditions, as it was written, so shall it be, sort of traditions. And we unfortunately see that coming from within the Ozark community itself, this idea that tradition has always been this thing. It's always looked this way. It's always been practiced in this way. And what ends up happening is we lose sight of the living part of the living tradition, and what we end up doing is we create a museum exhibit, and we forget about how traditions of healing especially are so ingrained within the culture. And of course we're talking about the Ozarks today, but we can talk about any culture that still retains some traditional healing as a part of the culture. And I will say that oftentimes you may not think these are a part of the culture, but they're there. And sometimes they're so close to what we live and breathe every day that we forget that they are actually traditions. We forget that these things were passed down, that these things didn't just sort of naturally occur. And so today I hope to sort of bring us back from these extremes back to the middle, back to the living, back to, the tradition that doesn't need to be revived because it hasn't gone anywhere. And so in my own sort of experience as, a folklorist, as someone who collects traditions, helps preserve traditions, I've even found myself aligning with some of these misconceptions. When I first started off collecting things, I was doing it in an academic way, and there's nothing wrong with academic folklore at all. But I had my little recorder out, and I would record people's stories, and I would write down remedies and catalog everything, keep everything together and organized. But what I realized over time, and I'm very thankful to the Ozark teachers that I have had who were very patient with me through this whole sort of like discovery process of my own. What I came to discover was that I wasn't trying to keep a tradition alive. I was trying to make that exhibit. I was curating each little piece here. Okay, this is a blank white wall. I think these things would look very nice here, very presentable here. And what I came to learn was that, this museum exhibit sort of framework has its place. Traditions need to be preserved, and every day we are losing more and more traditions, especially in the Ozarks, where so many people are leaving the rural areas. So many people are leaving families and things like that, and we're leaving a lot of information behind. So the folklorist in me always has to do the spiel of, please preserve your family traditions, even if it's just a little recording on your phone, or, if you have a box of grandma's recipes, look through them, take photos of them. We have great technology today to preserve these things. But then the sort of living traditional healer part of me is like, no, throw it all out, evolve your traditions, work with the pieces of the tradition, and don't try to preserve things that don't need to be preserved in the modern world. But I think we can kind of take a middle ground approach to all of this. One thing that I discovered in collecting things was that healers haven't stopped healing. And this is one of the misconceptions that we often see in the folk record. And one of the misconceptions that I unfortunately perpetuated for myself. I went out into the hills and into, where my family was, and collecting things with this idea that if I didn't collect this, it was going to die out. And this is unfortunately, true in a lot of cases, but what I discovered was that despite the fact that the practices and the traditions may look different from what the folklorists like Vance Randolph, Mary Parler were collecting in the first part of the 20th century, these things look different, but the heart of the practice, the heart of that healing tradition is there, because it is not an Ozark inheritance, it's a human inheritance. And so healers keep healing. Healers keep addressing their community. And that's an important part of this that I think we lose sight of a lot of the times. And one of the reasons why I was having so much trouble sort of formulating this talk was we lose sight of the point of healing itself. The point of traditional healing in particular is addressing the needs of the community. And in the Ozarks, traditional healers are always raised up by the community. They never self-identify as healers. And so the community has a need, and the community addresses that need by identifying people within the community that in Ozark terms, they're said to know things. And this is kind of a euphemism you hear sometimes that, if you're sick, there's a lady that lives out on the hill that knows things. Or that has the sight, or the gift. The gift is a big thing that's sometimes used, euphemism that's used. And so the community is what raises up the healer, because the community has need of healing, need of the healer. And I think that that's one thing that we've lost sight of, that I think traditional healing practices, studying these things, can really teach us again, is how do we address the hurt of the community? How do we address these healing needs of the community? And when we talk about traditional healing, we are not just talking about physical healing. We are talking about all of the needs that need to be met within the community. And we have individuals that can meet those needs. And sometimes those needs are physical healing, sometimes it's spiritual healing, emotional healing, whatever it might be. Traditionally, the healer was the go-to for these things. And traditionally, we have this idea of healers, and a lot of these images are often perpetuated by folklorists, this sort of view of the healer as, having a room full of herbs and potions and things hanging from the ceiling. And I have a room that looks exactly like that, so sometimes it's true. But oftentimes the healer was the person in the community, like I said, who knows things. And what does that mean? And in a lot of cases, traditional healers, and of course in the Ozarks we trace our healing traditions back to Northern European traditions, British traditions. And in the British Isles, there's this term that's often used for spiritual healers called cunning, the cunning folk, cunningness. And what does that mean? It's very close to our phrase, the knows things. Well, what do these people know that other people don't? And that's a part of why a healer is a healer. Oftentimes, healers are the people within the community who know how to be cunning, who know how to think around situations and know how to think creatively to come up with solutions to problems. And so oftentimes I kind of joke with people, but traditional healers in the Ozarks were oftentimes your local folk psychologist. They may not have any other training apart from the experience they gained from life itself and having this sort of gift, this spirit to be able to take in the experience of life and separate them into their symbolic values. So that I experience, pain in my community, and I take in that pain and I analyze the pain, and then I am able to then help people with pain in the community. And so a lot of times folk healers, may not have ever prescribed home remedies and things like that, the things that we sort of lump under this category of traditional healing. Traditional healers were oftentimes much more important than just providing remedies. And in a lot of cases, they did provide these remedies for a community that didn't have a doctor, that didn't have a pharmacist, that sort of thing. But I think even more than that, and the story that often gets left out of the story of traditional healers, is what they provided as far as the spiritual and emotional groundwork for their community's health. So that community aspect is really important. And if we forget about that, it's very easy for us to fall into those extremes of either all of this is superstition, doesn't need to be around, or we need to preserve every word and every dot on every I as a part of this museum exhibit. Both of these extremes forget the necessity of the community. And the role of the traditional healer is always to address the needs of the community. And guess what? Communities change. Communities evolve. The needs of the community look different from day to day. And so the traditional healer has to change to meet those needs. And that is something that I was lucky enough to discover amongst healers, studying amongst Ozark healers, traditional healers, that I think in a lot of cases we forget and we lose sight of, that the healer is there to address those needs of the community. So the sort of museum exhibit view of the Ozarks, often paints healers in a very specific light. The traditional healers I worked with were, by and large, keepers of vast amounts of traditional knowledge surrounding plants, surrounding home remedies. But as with one of my healers, she was fascinated. She was so excited not to share with me these secret charms and rituals and potions, but she wanted me to show her how to use her Google Drive to preserve little notes, because she kept forgetting things, but she knew how to record things. One of her grandkids had bought her a little MP3 recorder. She didn't have a phone, but she had a little MP3 recorder, but she didn't know how to get it off from this little box somewhere where she could then have her grandkids be able to access it, things like that. And so we lose sight of this, and I find myself doing this too. It's the sort of the fairy tale version that we often have. We want to sort of preserve this bubble, the way that things were, the way that things, that sort of capital T tradition. But we forget why those traditions exist. We forget that in the Ozarks, folk healing was survival. Traditional healing was how you survived in a wild, chaotic world where, our ancestors were facing problems that we don't have to face today. When I go out my house in the morning, I don't have to worry if a cougar is going to maul me in my driveway. Or, when I go work outside, I don't have to worry about if, a horse is going to step on my foot today and break my ankle or whatever. And these are all problems that, my grandparents and great-grandparents had to deal with. One of my great-grandparents was mauled by a cougar when she left her house. So, with the exception of maybe some of you that still live out places, most of us don't have to deal with these problems. So does that mean we don't need traditional healing? We don't need these traditional healing concepts? Absolutely not, because we're losing sight of the fact that traditional healing is there to address the needs of the community. And as the community changes, healing practices change. And unfortunately, sometimes we lose traditions. Sometimes they go away, not because nobody cares about them, but because the community changes in such a way that those practices may not be needed anymore. This is the importance of archives. This is the importance of the museum, to be able to preserve those traditional practices that maybe our community today no longer needs, but 50 years from now, the community might need those things. So we have to change with the changing community. And there's three sort of needs that I have found traditional healers address that we can really bring back into our lives, or we can, remember that these are important things to pair along with any sort of healing work or healing practice we might have, or any, healing that we ourselves might seek. So these are the needs that traditional healers sort of met. They met the needs of the individual. It was often very common for traditional healers to stay with their patients, to observe them throughout the entire healing process. This is, of course, something that our medical professionals can't do feasibly. Obviously, we can't do this. But we can examine what the heart of that tradition is. What are we talking about when we look at these healers that would stay with their patients? We're talking about care. We're talking about community caring for individuals who are in need, individuals who are sick, and not just caring for them in a moment, but caring for them throughout the process. And so this is the importance of community working for community. We are there in health, we are there through the healing process, and we are there coming out of that healing process as well. Traditional healers often facilitated then the needs of the family, and this is something we also forget about. We often focus all of our energy on the person who is ill, and we forget about the people around them that also need support through this as well. And this is an area, all of these sort of holistic methods of healing are things that people are starting to awaken to, even in hospital settings and things like that, where more and more hospitals, I was just reading some articles about a hospital system in Alaska that is finally allowing traditional healers to come in alongside modern medicine and to sit with people and to help the families and to work traditional methods alongside modern medicine. And so the needs of the family is addressed by the community by helping support sort of everyone involved, so that as we support the family, this family can actually have space to deal with what's going on. And it might be just helping them support somebody who has a minor illness, or it might be helping support the family in cases where they are about to lose this person that is dear to them. And I think we lose sight of that sometime when we just focus our efforts towards the illness. We forget that, that sort of emotional illness spreads throughout all of the people around. And then finally, the traditional healer addressing the needs of the community itself, evolving with an evolving community, changing with a changing community. So that even though the practices on the surface level that we can study and we can look at home remedies and all of this other stuff, but all of that is symptomatic of a much deeper connection. So as the healer remains connected to the needs of the community, all of those surface traditions, they change, they evolve, they grow. We incorporate new things, we discover new things, and we bring that into the practice. And so in my own work, my understanding had to shift away from preserving the surface level stuff to how do we preserve the heart of this practice? Because if we're just preserving the surface level stuff, that becomes quickly not relevant. And so then what we're left with is what we are experiencing today, where the traditional practices are gone, but we have no community connection anymore to recreate these traditions. So I think, my sort of final takeaway from all of this is community. And I think that more and more we're understanding how important it is to support each other as a community. Even if we are not supporting the traditional role of the healer within the community, we can all support that role within ourselves and help support those who have the gift, who have the talent, who have the drive and the will to rise above and beyond, maybe, to address the individual needs of the community. So let's not find ourselves in these extremes. Let's preserve what needs to be preserved, facilitate that archive, which is so important. But let us really look at what the heart of community is, what the heart of that sort of community healing really is, and help send that into the future and help evolve with that and help change with that, because that is what's going to help us survive. Thank you.
Brandon, thank you. That was wonderful. I learned so much. I know that we all did. Let's rise and sing together a traditional hymn called What Wondrous Love Is This, number 18. You may be seated.
Please join us in extinguishing the chalice.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thanks, y'all. Would you like to have some closing words for us, Brandon?
As we leave today, my hope is that we can all remember that in turbulent times, we have each other. For our ancestors, community oftentimes meant survival. Let us not forget that still today, community, helping each other heal, is just as important.
Go in peace, darlings.